Let me welcome you. Welcome. You know, I'm going to do something because we know how it is in school that, everybody files into the cafeteria or an auditorium and everybody sits in the back. So what we're going to do is have you move up so as people come in, they can fill in the back. Okay? So let me just have you to move up. See, I really have to put my thoughts together right now, and you just give me an opportunity to do that. You know, we will take notice about those who move and those who don't. We will take it, because see, sometimes we got to do something in making our young people obedient. And and our young children have to see that the adults know how to follow rules. That's just life. Once we tell all the children our story. And with the individual that did our editor, we have our person who does our logistics here, making sure that everybody's going to go to the right place. Anna, Charmaine Cook in the house. So when you get ready to do your planning, you've got somebody who can do your planning. When you get ready to write that book, or you have a young person who wants to write, you have something that you want published, we've got an editor in the house. Now, today we are here, we have a special treat for you. We have Uncle Wiley in the house. Uncle Wiley, please stand up. Now, how many of you know Uncle Wiley? You've eaten his food stuff, you've gone shopping and found his seasonings, had some canned goods, was able to put together a meal and the family said, your stuff is good. But across the country, Uncle Wiley's, he has food items in major stores, supermarkets, even in here in our backyard. And it's actually an interesting story when we want to talk about history, when we have an African American who has canned goods, sees all of this stuff. But it's like, well, I want to talk to you. What is it like to get into that business? And what happens when you get ready to move your stuff across the country? Are there places that you may not be able to go to because there's some kind of block? I mean, there's so much stuff that he can tell you. He's a history book all in itself. And in addition to that, I owe a thanks to my volunteers. And if every one of my volunteers can stand, please. We have volunteers in the house. And I want you to know, in this group, there are individuals that they said, listen, for our school, we have to volunteer our services. And they put in a special call and said, can we volunteer for your event? And I'm pleased about that. And also there's a young person in the house, and I'm not going to call this young person out, but I am going to say at 12 years of age, anytime that you have a young person who can come up to you and say, I want to be a business person one day. Can I work with you so I can learn about business? And let me tell you what her brother said to her. Her brother said, man, you always trying to, do business with folk. But when somebody... So, Lisa Monroe, I'm going to ask if you will open us up in prayer.
This morning, we thank you for the health and strength that you continually give to us to achieve the desires of our hearts, which are the things that you give us. We thank you for this time we've come together today to fellowship in our history, to educate ourselves about our accomplishments, to tell all the children our story of all that we've achieved and all that we've overcome over the years. When we tell all the children our story, we're really telling your story, Lord, because it's you who has brought us this far, thus far by faith, and we thank you for that. And so we are holding as a trust the history that you've given us. It is our responsibility to give it back to our families, to each other, and especially to our young people, so that they, generation by generation, can continue to give glory to you and to inspire others. We thank you for this time. We pray that your abundant mercies and blessings will fill our day and help us be fruitful as we fellowship with one another. And we ask all these blessings in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Mr. Monroe here. Oh, can you just have her to come in? She's just going to lead us in singing. We're going to sing Lift Every Voice. And it's always wonderful when we have our elders about us. And with our elders, we take the lead. Our elders take the lead, and then we follow. Sister Monroe? Oh, this feels so wonderful when we have our elders in the house, doesn't it? And Sister Monroe is only going to lead us, and we are going to join her. We are all going to lift our voices. And so, Sister Monroe, if you will lead us this morning, and we should all stand. Every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the hope that the darkness has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. I want to share a bit about him, and oftentimes we have this long list. I'm getting ready to read these things. Somebody said, "Okay, Jim Rawlings, there's a lot of things that you can say about him," but I decided that I would make it short. But I want to share about Jim Rawlings in a personal way. I have a 90-year-old aunt. No, Jim's not 90 years old, but I have a 90-year-old aunt, and she, this past holiday season, Christmas, she did a lot of cooking, and she entertained 30 people. And so when I talked to her, and she said, I'm still in the bed. I said, well, Aunt Bert, and she said, I cooked for everybody. Nobody brought anything. Everybody came knowing she was 90 years old, and she prepared everything. Everybody ate well. And so here we are in, the month of February. Aunt Bert said, I'm still in bed. Now, and I want to relate that to our president of the NAACP. This brother's about to cook. We don't want to let him cook alone. But we have individuals that take the lead in our community. They need us to show up. And I heard from Brother Rawlings that he's got a plan. The man's got a plan, and it's a bucket plan. See, this bucket plan includes each and every one of you. We all get to participate in the bucket plan. Because we know even the government chops things up and you don't know what's going here, what's going there. Well, the brother has come up with a plan, and that plan, everybody gets to put something, in the bucket. So I'm going to let Brother Man with a plan, Brother James Rawlings, president of the local chapter of the NAACP, come forth and share with you what he needs from us. See, we don't want this brother at some point. Somebody calls him, he says, I'm still in bed. He's too tired. Because this is work cannot be done alone. And he has a vision And see, and President Barack Obama, he needs individuals that not only have a vision, but also a passion to move forward. See, we got to get something that gets us unstuck. Because sometimes, we're just a little lax. And sometimes when you're a little lax and you need something to get you to move, we might need a little lax to kind of get things moving, So, yes, I need to say things that just stick in our minds. So, Brother Man, if you can come and help us to put together so that we can operate together. Brother James Wallace.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
I think sometimes we undervalue our leaders. And B. Docia Taylor mentioned that your team has been working to tell our children a story for 6 years. And we take that for granted that these things will happen. But B and her team receives no monetary value or resources for what she does out of love for our community. And sometimes I think we take that for granted, that individuals who have a passion for our community, and more importantly, a passion for our children, we take it for granted. And I think there's no way that we can thank Bea and her team for saving a child or saving children or saving the community via applause, but we should, in a shallow way, simply give Bea and her team a tumultuous hand for what she has given back to our community. That's called leadership. I work in corporate America, and I've always believed when you make a decision, the decision, if it's done correctly, should be the total IQ of the group, not the IQ of any individual. Therefore, if my IQ is 100, and I'm meeting with 6 people, the solution should be the sum, should be 600, not 100. And so this morning we want to work through that, because in the room this morning we have 40 individuals or 50. So if we're talking about solutions, it shouldn't be the sum of 1 IQ. It should be the sum of 50 IQs. That's the way the government works, the best of minds working together to solve problems. Now, relative to the NAACP, this is our 100th anniversary. And my back, and Bee's back, and Lisa LaRoe's back, and many of our backs, young folks don't understand this, are scarred from this long, long journey. And I am so glad that many of our young people are here today because of the work that Bea and her friends and associates have done, will not have the lashes on their backs that we have endured so that our children benefit. And when they look up now, they'll see a president that looks like them. And Bea and myself and a lot of others of us in the room here never thought that that would be a dream, would ever be realized. So our children won't have that baggage of thinking they cannot aspire. So we're so hopeful, we're so optimistic. I have here a picture of a man that we all know, or should know, or will know. All right? I didn't hear you, young man. What did you say?
That's Obama.
That's what, and who is he? And who is he?
Our president.
He is our president. Imagine that. That young man did not know George Wallace. And he says here in a Newsweek magazine that we are ready to lead once more. We, collectively. And it will be a real sin if our community does not step up, because he's doomed to failure if we do not step up. As a matter of fact, they would love for him to fail as a result of us not stepping up. I happened to meet this young man in July of '08. It was at a national meeting of the NAACP. And believe it or not, in spite of the way he looks here, he is only about 5'10", about 160 pounds. Small guy, but he's all muscular and he works out. But a tremendous guy in terms of interpersonal relationships. He always tells sometimes I'm very defensive of new relationships. And, but immediately I knew that this was a good brother. Not someone that we would have to figure out if they were a brother. We all know what that means.
Yes.
This was a good brother immediately. So this morning we're talking about hopefully what B has called doing our pot, our buckets, and getting out of the old history of saying, not I, the boogeyman, someone else who raised our children. It's because of them that our children are not moving forward. We own the destiny of our children. There was a fellow named, I always revoked his name, it's Adam Clayton Powell. And for young folks, they may not know who he is, but for those of us who are contemporary, what was most important from Adam Clayton Powell was what is in your hand. Your hand denotes how you go forward. You control it yourself. The Greater New Haven branch of the NAACP, I may add, without being robust, is the largest branch in New England. We have the best e-board. We have the best education chair, economic development chair. We're going to talk with Mr. Wiley before he leaves this afternoon, you know. And some of our other board members are here. Sometimes there's confusion about what the NAACP is and what we do. We're just an advocate to bring lawyers and go to court and things like that. We're just about advocacy. But advocacy is about systemic change. It's about Brown versus the Board of Ed. It's about the most recent victory we had. We have been able to change the Supreme Court issues around crack versus cocaine in our communities. Those are the things that the NAACP does. Most recently, we had an issue with someone named Richard Murdoch, who somewhat tried to slander our president. We had some discussions with Mr. Murdoch, and he apologized to our president and apologized to African Americans in the United States through the NAACP. We only focus on an annual basis, 3 things. We try to do three things well. We don't try to do 12 things poorly. We try to do 3 things well. And we do this through a process that we prioritize what we're going to do. And for the last 18 months, we have worked on 3 things principally. That has been education, that has been economic development, and health. I see there's going to be discussion about health later on, and we'll probably have to go back and forth on that point. But we also have done other things. We're about to go to the Supreme Court of the United States out of New Haven relative to a reverse discrimination case coming out of New Haven with our Firebirds. Our Firebirds are black firemen. And if that case goes forward, we have a guy in this country called Ward Conley. Ward Conley has a distinct dislike for people of color, even though he may look like us. Going back to Mr. Obama, he may look like us. We are in the middle of an issue with Lisa Monroe around the issues in our school systems where too many of our children are suspended disproportionately, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do about that. So there are many things that we're involved in. In addition to that, more recently, as a part of the centennial, we had matter of fact, we had a focus group here 2 weeks ago, talked about race relationships post-Obama. And those with history should recall that the NAACP was founded in New York with a multiracial group. What about the NAACP? As a matter of fact, our first 3 presidents were not minorities. And many members of the Jewish community were part of the NAACP, and they continue to be part of the NAACP. Some data that I think will help frame our discussion this morning, the need for us, individually and collectively. No idea is a bad idea about how we can get ourselves out of this conundrum, these issues we have in our community. 40% of our children live in poverty in New Haven. So how can they possibly survive carrying that animal? We are one of the top 10 cities in America for our size, pound for pound, the number of violent crimes defined by the FBI. 50% of our teenagers by age 10 are sexually active. 93% of all teen pregnancies in New Haven, 93% are African American Latino. Academic scores, 30% less than the state in terms of the CAP, what they call them, CAPs, what do you call those things, Lisa?
CAP test.
CAP tests. When our children leave school, they have to compete with those individuals who scored higher by 30%. How can our children compete? When I was a young man, we competed with the person in the next block or maybe in the same city. This is a flat world now, so now they have to compete with those Asian students in our schools who are in the top 2%. How do we prepare our children so they can compete in the world economy? New Haven itself is 50% of the males drop out of high school. I was in Detroit last year, I believe, the number was 60%. The kind of critical mass moving forward on something that's important. They don't treat your babies well. Young people have to understand that they'll pay Michael Jordan some dollars, but I'd like to be able to be in a position where I can pay. And let's not go down the road of incarcerations of our young men and more recently of our young ladies. These are our problems. That's why I'd like to have some ideas on what each of us can do individually. Not saying that it's the boogeyman, it's this, someone else has done this to our community. If someone was injuring any of your children, you would not let it happen. But these are all of our children. Each child is our child. Somehow we have forgotten that. Some of those individuals that have been able to do well say, my child is doing well. Something not right when you can say that at the expense of all the children. That's why we want to have a discussion this morning around some ideas that we can put on the table that may be a soft idea or a hard idea or idea that's not as challenging, but what ideas do we have? A couple of weeks ago when we met here, there was something that came up that was interesting. Our police chief mentioned that we are one of the 3 states in the United States of America that puts teenagers into the adult system. Therefore, once they're in the system with an adult, more than likely your ability to get out of that system is lessened. Most states separate teens from adults. How do we get to the point where we let ourselves be trapped where our teenage boys and young ladies on occasion get put in a system that's going to almost lock them in to the industrial prison complex? Now, at some point in time, that came up for a vote. At some point in time, the Department of Corrections did something. And at some point in time, we were all silent. And then we wonder why so many of our young men get locked into that system. So we can do some things with sharing information about the future of our young people. Now today, normally we have the discussion at Florida around some of the adult issues and geriatrics and things of that nature, but this morning's around our children. We also talked about at the last meeting here 2 weeks ago about developing a mentoring program. And someone said we should get 500 individuals, men and women, to spend some time with our children. Now we've been trying that for quite a while since I've been involved in the NAACP, and we've called out several times and probably get 20. And I use the word men generically between men and females. But if we love our children and we know that if they can relate to an adult in a meaningful way, why haven't we stepped up? If we don't step up, the data that I quoted is data that we own. So there are many good ideas in this room because some of our ideas today should be like IQ of 5,000. That's a pretty great guy. It's like that guy who owns Microsoft, whatever his name is. What's that guy's name? Billy Gates. I know him firsthand. You know? So what we wanted to do this morning is think about ideas. There's 3 buckets here, maybe 4, that we're talking about. And maybe you would want to add to that. The issue of education, the future of our children, the issue of health care, and particularly on pregnancies and infant mortality, adolescent health, the high rate of dropouts of our young people, which is not so much education, it's social infrastructure, mentoring, opportunities, and making sure that the dream is realized. And remembering that there's no idea that's a bad idea. That's just an idea. But we have to be about taking, what we're going to do is the NWC, we have a monthly, quarterly newsletter. And as we have developed these ideas from the previous seminar, we're going to start to do some work and report back on how we're doing. So at some point in time, we're going to say that in terms of mentors, we have 50 or 100. Or, wouldn't that be great if we were able to say that we had 500 mentors, and everyone in this room said, we are not going to allow this data, these statistics, to continue at the expense of the current generation or the next generation, because that's what we're going to be bequeathing to the next generation. And also, if you don't have an idea, you have to be part of the solution. And B, at least remember this old saying, if you're not part of the solution, what are you a part of? Okay? So what we want to do is, during the day, let me give you some idea what 90 days, there's 3 buckets here, 90 days, 120 days, and 360. The idea of getting together 500 men or females is something you can do quickly. Everyone simply volunteers their time, and they say, I will commit to, I'll put my name in a bucket, and I'll be part of that team. You can do that now. The issue of changing the system around the adolescents and teenagers in the prison system may take a little longer. That's more systemic. That may take 360. But the idea is, what are the things that you can think of? As opposed to simply saying we can do something without thinking thoroughly through it. What are the things that may require legislation, which of course takes more time? What are the things that may require having succession planning for Mr. Obama? This may be much more challenging, but we need the ideas of individuals around education. Will we in fact be mentors? Will we in fact work with the churches at 3 o'clock? Because that is when our young ladies become impregnated. And the young men are acting like boys. I shouldn't say men yet, but acting like boys and males. We can do that through our churches and other venues we have, but we have to commit to doing it. So if you're going to say something around those opportunities to help our community, then we have to say we can do that. There's something like churches is 90 days. That's not something that's going to take 120 or 360 or 720. So there are many things we can do right now to help our children. There are some things that take a little more time, think through it, put it in the bucket, and those things that require more of a systemic change in terms of legislation, put those in also if they're great ideas in terms of changing the system. But we all own this. And I just can't back away from the fact that all too often it's someone else's fault. They didn't do this. It's all first person singular. It's what we and I will do around the young people in this room and young people not in this room. We own it. You know, when Bush was in the White House, he was only one man. There's a lot of houses in America, and we blame a lot of things on Mr. Bush, you know, without thinking about the things in our own homes. Okay? Ms. Taylor?